So you think you know Europe? Think again. One continent.
Tons of music.
Ready?
This
Is the Eurotrip.
We're back again. This is a new thing we're doing. It's called Since We Last Spoke, and we're going to cover everything Eurovision and Junior Eurovision since we last spoke to you. That's the title. The first thing we're going to talk about today is the biggest news. That is Romania are hopeful of returning to Eurovision 2017. This is after the government announced that they will be clearing TVR's debt to the EBU. What do you each think about Romania's quite sudden return to the contest? Well, potential return.
To be honest, I didn't even want them to leave. I think it was quite unfair, as we've mentioned probably before. I think it was quite unfair that it got so close to the contest and then they had to withdraw, mainly on OVG, who had worked so hard to get there. But they do send really good entries, bar a few maybe, but I do enjoy their entries and stuff, and I'm glad that the government are actually doing something about it instead of brushing it away, which I guess means I'm not sure, but I'm happy about it. I'm glad that they're doing something about it, and hopefully the EB will let them do it, which I assume they will, obviously because they're in debt. So yeah.
Yeah, as Annie touched on, it was such an injustice that obviously you couldn't participate this year, especially after you put all the hard work in. So, so it's a good thing that the government are stepping in to lend a hand, because I want to see Romania back just as much as we all do, I think, because they are such a good Eurovision country and they know what a good entry is in the contest. So I think the sooner they're back, the better, and it's very gracious of the government to lend a hand, as I said.
Here, the timing of their expulsion was very unfair on OVG more than anyone, and the government at the time said they couldn't help out because of money and whatnot. They seem to have fixed that. I know it's not going to be cleared in time for this year to get the Euros and the Olympics back, but they're planning for the year ahead, next year and the year after, because of the EU's control on everything. So we do again, just as a fair point.
Definitely.
Other news came out of Eurovision this week is Denmark have announced they are returning to Eurovision 2017, despite not qualifying the last 2 years, with rule changes to Dansk Melodi Grand Prix. The main rule change is that international writers can now submit songs as well as Danish. Do we think this is going to cause a change in the standard of songs in Dansk Melodi Grand Prix, and do you think Denmark can get back into the final and win again with this sort of rule change, do you feel?
The way it is, I like the songs in the national final. I don't see a problem with them, but obviously opening it up to international writers and things, that means Sweden might get involved, which are obviously up there in terms of songwriting, and it allows maybe smaller writers to become more successful in that way, but also people might not like it as much because it's not a specifically Danish song from Danish people. But personally, I don't see a problem with it. It might even increase how well they do. They might do even better with a different sort of sounding song. It just depends, really. It's worked for other countries, so I don't see why it wouldn't work for Denmark.
I think Emily summed that up perfectly, really. There was nothing really wrong with Dansk Melodi Grand Prix before this year anyway. They've always had good standard songs from Danish songwriters. They've had numerous top tens in the past. I know they haven't qualified the past couple of years, so I think they are looking for something to do to change that, maybe to give themselves more options, which is why they've opened it up to international songwriters. I think that just gives them more chances of qualifying and getting back in the top 10 where they belong. I don't think it's going to poison their contest to select who's going to go to Eurovision. I don't think it's going to get rid of national identity at all, because lots of selections have international songwriters anyway. So I think it can only do Denmark good.
And with the influx of songs, do you think that will cause a change in the way Dansk Melodi Grand Prix sets up, maybe introducing semi-finals instead of just straight final? Do you see that changing? And why do you think it hasn't worked for Denmark in the last few years? Why do you think they just haven't qualified, considering 3 years ago we were planning for Copenhagen because they just won with Emily de Forest?
I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the entries over the past 2 years. I think they were both rather good pop songs, but maybe Europe just didn't want that these past 2 years. So I can't put my finger on it. But in regards to semi-finals, yeah, if they want to fork out more money for more shows, then I'm game for that.
Yeah, going back to that, I think the fact that maybe they've chosen two boy bands in the past 2 years maybe might not have been to their advantage. Like, they didn't do as well in 2015, yet they sent a quite similar sort of sounding song and band sort of thing in 2016. That could have something to do with it, but honestly I wouldn't mind seeing semi-finals and things like that. Obviously, as Callum said, it would be more money for them, but that probably isn't much of a problem. If it raises the song quality, then I don't see why not.
And last question for Denmark: if you could pick one person from Denmark to represent them, who would you choose?
Simone. Straight away, easy.
Probably Annie Neeson, just because I liked her this year, and I think she has potential.
I would probably agree with Anja Nilsson or Christelle Lisberg, because I like both their songs from this year, so one or the other. I'm not too bothered. Tweeted out this week is that the Hard Kiss, who came second in Ukraine's national election, are already working on songs to represent Ukraine in 2017. They came second with their song Helpless, which actually won the jury vote, but they lost out after Jamala won by a bigger margin in the televote. Would you be happy with the Hard Kiss returning, and do you think they could do Ukraine well on home soil?
Personally, I don't mind them. I had to refresh my memory because it was quite a while ago when the national final was. But after listening to it again, I think it's quite a good song and things. So I don't see why it would be harmful for them to enter again, because obviously they did so well last year. Yeah, it'd be nice to see. I'm not like a massive fan of them or anything, but I'd like to see what happens, what they can bring.
The game. Well, they came second, so they clearly know what they're doing. They know how to create a good song. So if they're already starting that, then they've obviously got good ambitions to represent Ukraine on home soil next year. I couldn't really remember their song. I had to refresh my memory as well. But it's we were talking before we started recording this, and we were saying that we couldn't really put our finger on exactly what the genre of their song was. So maybe if they kind of stick to one genre, that might help them out. But I guess what they did this year with not being able to stick to one genre could help them next year as well.
I love the Hard Kiss from this year. It's after Victoria Petrick was unfairly eliminated in the semi-finals. I was wanting them to win. I was very sad they didn't go. I mean, still well done to Jamala, but I was wanting the Hard Kiss to win. I think the fact they've already announced they want to do it for them shows that their intent, and they'll be good ambassadors for Ukraine and nothing else, because it shows they are passionate about the contest and they want to represent their country. As for the uncertainty of what their style is, I think maybe being a bit of a crossover would help. It would give them the ability to stand out. I think that's what worked for Jamala, being able to stand out, and Ukraine always does stand out in one way or another, whether it's having a hamster wheel on stage or a giant on stage. They always are memorable in some sense. I would be happy with the Hard Kiss representing Ukraine at this moment in time. We don't know if they are having a national final or not, and even if they were internally selected, I'd be very happy. And the reaction we got from social media seems a lot of people would be happy if the Hard Kiss went as well. So fingers crossed they at least get selected and they do well. Announced their returns to Eurovision 26. France. Germany's broadcaster NDR are saying they need to focus more time on the song. What do you think the Big Five need to do? Because apart from France, in recent years, they have been really, really struggling, apart from the odd song or two. What do you think the Big Five need to do to get themselves pushed forward up the scoreboards?
Well, in regards to France, I know this year they changed the head of delegation, I believe, and as you can see, that their results went from right down here to way up here, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but obviously it looks like it. So I'd say probably something along those lines. I know quite a few of the countries had national finals, like Spain and the UK, and Germany, sorry. Yeah. which didn't seem to work out as well for them, but it is very nice to get the public's opinion as well as just the internal selection. So honestly, I'm not entirely sure what they could do. I think sticking to the national finals is probably the best bet, just so then you've got the jury and the public deciding on your entry as opposed to just internal and people being unhappy about it. But yeah, if I was to select a Eurovision entry, basically I would make sure that I had a good songwriter as opposed to a good performer, because you can just pick a good performer. You can pick a performer that isn't as good. But if you have an amazing performer but the song's rubbish, then it doesn't work as well as if you had a good song with a rubbish performer. I've seen in past years. That was sort of a bit made up, but there you go.
We get you.
if you understood what I meant.
I think going down the national selection route is a winning formula sometimes. I think it's a better bet than going for an internal selection, because you do get the public's opinion and often get a jury with that as well. So you've got the best of both worlds there. But as Emily said again, getting the song right is key. If you've got a good song, that's like half the battle, even more.
That was what I was trying to say, but I messed up a little bit on that.
We both messed up. But yeah, so if you've got a good song, you've won more than half the battle. So I think that's what the big five need to do, because they have been struggling over the past years, and it is sad to see, because they help the structure of the contest, obviously financially. So it would be nice to see one of the big five win soon, and to see that hard work pay off.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, I'm not sure what they can really do to make it fair. Obviously, they introduced their performances into the semi-finals. That didn't really make much of a change. I know with Amir's song, there was 3 songs up for consideration, and they put them through mainstream media such as radio and things like that. And Jay Sachet got the biggest reaction, so I think that's why they went with it, which seemed to work. But with Germany, they also had a new head of delegation who restructured the contest, and still Jamie Lee finished last. So it's a bit. I guess you're all right. I guess it does come down to the song first and foremost. If you get that right, that's fine, because it doesn't matter how you select a song. If a song's good, it's going to place well regardless of how you do. I wish the Big Five would do better, just because people are starting to see if it's a bit unfair that some countries such as Russia and Sweden have to work their way into the final, whereas such as the UK and Germany just get a straight bypass to it. And I don't have an issue with that, to be honest. I think, if they are the countries that put the most money into it, they should be allowed to compete automatically into the final. And the UK, they still sent a better song than in recent years. I think the national final worked for them, but it was just a bit unfortunate that this year was a very strong year, I felt, for Joe and Jake to go into the contest with that song, I felt. So for the following year, I'm not sure what they really can do. I just hope at least one of them or two of them make the top 5, or at least the top 10 next year, just to give more faith in the Big Five. But at the same time, I'm hoping Italy ditch Sanremo as well, because that needs to go big time.
Yeah.
I do not like Sanremo.
I think the 2 countries that really need to change are Italy with their selection and Germany with their selection, because it hasn't worked for Germany the past 2 years. And I think as fans, we don't really like Sanremo as a selection compared to all the others, so you can see that we're in agreement there. So I think if Italy went down a different route, and Germany as well, then that might change the fortunes.
Something news come out today about BHRT, the delegation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, are saying they're unsure of whether they're able to return to Eurovision 2017. We know they are ceasing broadcasting after the 30th of June due to financial problems, which begs the question, if there were financial issues, why did they compete in Eurovision 2016 when they well knew they couldn't really afford to? Emily, what do you think on this about Bosnia, as you're such a Balkan lover?
Well, I was going to say, it's quite a shame, because, I do like the Balkan countries in Eurovision, but I know they have, in the past, they've had to withdraw because of financial reasons, and I think they should have waited until they knew for definite that they could afford to do everything that they've already done. in 2016. So it is a shame, but obviously if they do need that time to try and build themselves back up again, Eurovision should probably not be the main priority if they're in such financial issues. That's the same for any country, really. Like, obviously the contest is important to us as fans and people, but as a country, if you need the money, you need the money. Like, you shouldn't just think about Eurovision for that. But it is a shame, especially as they've only just returned and then they might have to leave again. But what has to be done has to be done, really.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously don't know all of the ins and outs and all of the details going on at the HRT, but for such a cash-strapped broadcaster, you'd think getting financial security would be more important than participation in Eurovision. As much as we think it's important, having financial stability as a broadcaster is way more important than the contest. So I think they just, because they're struggling financially and they're going to cease broadcasting, they need to sort out the finances and, you know, put Eurovision on the back burner for a while, make sure they get themselves sorted out, and then think about coming back. I think it was silly for them to participate this year, especially with such a bad song. So I think they just need to settle down, work out where they're at, and then come back when they're ready.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. As much as we love Eurovision and more countries the better sort of thing, you need to make sure the country can afford to do it and it's not going to ruin their businesses and their nation. And Bosnia are now in trouble with that because obviously, depending on where you place, depends on how much money you get back from the EU. You know, this is coming out more and more apparent in recent years. And Bosnia said they were surprised they didn't make the final, and maybe they were banking on making the final to be able to bankroll their participation next year. So I agree the song wasn't great, and I'm glad it didn't qualify, but still, I agree. I don't think they should have returned. They said it was financially the reasons why they couldn't beforehand, and they were so up and down if they were or weren't this year, because they had provisionally then they withdrew, they were back in it, then they were out. So yeah, it sounds like Bosnia don't really know where their heads are at the minute, and I just hope they can sort out, even if it's right up to the participation deadline. I think it's fine, but hopefully they can sort themselves out. And in other news, it looks like Kiev and Lviv are the only two serious contenders to host Eurovision 2017. This has come out from Ukraine's national broadcaster. If this was to go ahead, Lviv would be using Arena Lviv, which has a capacity of 37,000, and Kiev would be using the Olympic National Sports Complex, which is also Ukraine's national ground for international matches with their football team, which hosts 70,000. And need to get roofs on their complexes, as that is a requirement of the competition. And finally, one last point I want to pull on is Iceland and Switzerland have confirmed their participation for 2017, and we covered this in a brief blog. They've neither had very good qualification reps recently. Switzerland only qualifying twice in the last 10 years, and Ireland not qualifying in the last 3 and coming last in their last qualification, which was obviously 2013 with Ryan Dolan. What do you think they need to do to get back in the final, especially Switzerland, because say 2 out of 10 years qualifying is really not good enough?
I don't know where to start. Like, I'm not sure.
Let's be honest. We don't know what Switzerland needs to do, and I don't think they know either, because, well, no, I don't even know where to even begin with this. Emily, go on. Have you got anything?
The thing about Switzerland is that the national final is very weak.
Yeah.
Every year, I think there's one song out of everyone that's in it, and they end up going to Eurovision. I think they need a stronger national final with stronger songs, so it's not obvious who the winner is every year. And even then, the winner isn't the best, apart from Sabalta. So I think that's one thing they need to consider is a national final. With Ireland, honestly, I'm not sure, because they've tried so many different things and it doesn't really work for them. So I think Ireland's a bit like the UK as well, in that we've tried so many different things, but it's just going downhill. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what I would suggest for them.
I'd like to see Ireland give a go at a proper national selection, because they've given an internal selection a go, and they've had the silly selections on, what was it, the Late Late Show?
Late Late Show.
What was that? Let's quickly get away from that. So yeah, if you try a national selection, a proper one, it's all about the music rather than the entertainment value, then that might change the fortunes. You know, as we were saying, getting professional songwriters in. So if that might help, then what do you do about Switzerland?
I don't know. But going back to Ireland as well, thinking about it, the national final, the national selection is not the best at all. Like the fact that it's on the Late Late Show, which is like a talk show on at like 11 o'clock, is just a bit ridiculous. And the fact that I remember watching it one year and there was a big drama about. I don't even remember what the drama was about, but I just remember there was a huge drama and it was all just for entertainment. No one really cared about the song. It was mainly just about who was on the panel or whatever and all these. It was a bit like X Factor sort of thing. It really wasn't good at all. It wasn't even like a national final. It was more like a talk show. So I think that's one thing they could do is to actually stage a national final, because I'm sure they would be able to do it. They would be able to put on a national final and end up doing well, but it's just something that they need to consider.
Yeah, I agree with Switzerland. Your guess is as good as mine what they can do. Like I said, 2 out of 10 years qualifying is just not good enough. They were obviously 2011 and 2014, and the standard of songs bar those 2 years since I've been watching have been really, really poor. Like I mean, Melanie Renee was okay, but yeah, like they need to be more memorable. I think Switzerland, like, say nothing. Just I don't even know what they could do. Part of me wants to say just select internally, find a decent Swiss singer, and just select that way. Ireland, I don't know. They've tried the UK route. It always looks like they said like national finals aren't working. Let's go for a big name. That obviously didn't work on the night, as we saw with Nicky Byrne. So I do think a dedicated solo national final is the way forward for Ireland. But again, I don't know, because they have got talent. Ireland do have talent. There is Jedward, there is Erica Sellen, so they have names and they can produce good songs, but I guess only time will tell. But they're definitely back, and in a few months we'll be able to review their songs and see what we think of them. But that is all. Comment, like us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the blog, and the latest episode of the Eurotrip is online as well, with new music from the Netherlands, Moldova, and Norway. So make sure you listen to that as well. And until next time, have a good one.
So you think you know Europe? Think again. One continent.
Tons of music. Ready?
This
is the Eurotrip.